Good afternoon, everyone. I hope everybody is doing well on this beautiful summer day. Look behind me. Look at the scenery. Look at the scene behind me. So I felt like this was a fitting and appropriate location to talk about something that's very important. When I was growing up in Jamaica, from basic school, we used to sing, "What your eyes, what they see." We went to church and we would sing the same song in Sunday school. Messaging is important, right? I feel like it was relevant then, and it's even more relevant now with the advent of social media. Everybody has a phone, everybody has some type of social media. But let me not overgeneralize. Let me just say most people. So now that message has become even more important to be careful of what we look at. So over the last 8 to 10 years, I have been struggling with alopecia. Right? There's a reason why I started with that. I want to share an experience with you, how important it is what we look at. So over the last 8 to 10 years, I've been struggling with alopecia. I went to many doctors. Actually, I went to 3 dermatologists. And the third dermatologist said, "Don't even sit." When I took off my wig, he said, "Don't even sit. There's nothing I can do for you. There's nothing we can do for you. The only thing that I can do is recommend someone who makes very good wigs." Now, as a believer, I didn't accept that. I did not accept that my hair would never grow back. And for some people who are not sure, alopecia, there are different types of alopecia. And their alopecia is caused by many and various things, from diet to genetics to hairstyles, what we do to our hair, like hormones. All kinds of things can cause alopecia. The dog is saying hi to you guys. Anyways, so yeah. So that dermatologist said that there was nothing that they could do for me, but I didn't accept it. Then I went to a 4th dermatologist, and I used to get like needles in my scalp. I forget the name of the medication, but it was the doctor at the time felt that there was some kind of infection on my scalp, both on my scalp and underneath my scalp. So he wanted to treat it with antibiotics, with me taking antibiotics, and then the needles. Yeah, I saw them. They're beautiful. Yes. So after a while, I decided that, I was going to take the antibiotics. At first, I was taking the needles in my scalp once a week, and then it got to the point where I was taking it every 6 weeks. As you can tell, taking needles in your scalp is not fun. It's not a pleasurable experience. So after a while, I just did not bother to go back. But the part of it that was interesting is the fact that initially when I started going, when my scalp was in a really bad state, the needles weren't painful. Like I could take the needle and I literally could, I don't even remember if I felt it. I saw blood after, but the more my scalp began to heal, is the more painful it became. So eventually I just didn't go. But in the meantime, Mr. Google, Dr. Google, I kept going on Google and I kept looking at pictures, but I kept looking at pictures of people with alopecia like myself. So I would see the condition that people's scalp was in, varying states of hair loss. Like I said, as a believer, in my heart, I believed that my hair would grow back. But then there was this dissonance in my spirit. So, your brain, your head, that's the source of logic. That's it. That's the center of logic. So I kept feeding my brain, the logical part of me, I kept feeding my brain images of people with severe hair loss. So there was that dissonance, there was that conflict within me where my heart believed one thing and in my head I believed something else, right? My head was like, yeah, I understand what you're saying. You're trying to believe that you're going to get healed. But based on the images that you're feeding me, I don't know if I can accept that. Now, the Bible talks about how can two walk unless they be agreed? It means that the agreement has to happen before you start walking, not after. I know usually when we quote it, we say, agree. How can two walk unless they agree? But it's in the past tense, agreed. So it means that before you start walking, you have to come into agreement. In that scenario, my heart and my brain were not in agreement. So there was constant. So yeah, some people were passing. So yeah, there was a constant struggle in me of my heart believing one thing and my head believing something else. And what my head believed was based on the images that I was looking at. Flash forward to maybe 2 years ago, I discovered 2 years ago, I discovered a hair community on social media, both on Instagram and on YouTube, where people had created a whole community around taking care of the hair in various states. And one of those states was, like I talked about, the alopecia. So I started to look at these people with their beautiful hair on their hair journey, just their hair growing back. Some people even created products, hair growth products, as a result of the fact that they had suffered some type of hair loss and the doctors couldn't address the issue at the time. Things have changed, but at the time the doctors couldn't address those issues, so they decided that they were going to address the issues themselves. So I started to look at those images of people with their hair growing back, and then one day I was going for a walk, much like today. I don't remember praying, I don't even remember thinking about my hair, but all of a sudden I had an epiphany. I had a realization that my hair was going to grow back. So in that moment, I realized what happened. My head and my heart finally came into agreement because of the images that I started looking at. Because of the images that I started to look at, the new images of people with beautiful hair, with people who lost their hair, but now their hair started to grow back. My head and my heart agreed that yes, my hair is going to grow back. The point I'm trying to make is it's important what we look at. Messaging around what we look at cannot be overstated. And it works in various aspects of our lives. And that is why, I know this is like a stretch, a leap, but that is why pornography is so very dangerous. Because people look at these images, and I mean, pornography is everywhere. There's soft porn on social media, on Twitter, to the extreme triple XX. It has become more accessible all over the place. And that's why it's important that we guard our eyes. Many philosophers believe, and many people believe, that the windows are the eyes to the soul. Our eyes are a portal to our souls. So for that reason, we have to be very careful of what we look at. People look at porn long enough, eventually their reality is not that enticing to them anymore, because the fantasy is greater. The fantasy of looking at somebody else is greater, so sometimes people ruin what they have based on the images, the pornographic images, the pornographic videos that they look at. So now more than ever, it's important, it's paramount that we guard our eyes. We guard our eyes, because through our eyes we allow thoughts, we allow images, and these images materialize into thoughts, and before we know, we are driven away, as the Bible says, by our own lusts, and it's because of the things that we look at.